Thank you very much, MP Khadija Amin, for the comprehensive discussion and revelations as it relates to some of the critical issues facing us today, notably classroom violence and the implications for the future, and also the importance of building a holistic and multifaceted approach to dealing with crime in the school system and in the wider community. Those are some issues, of course, which I may touch on as I continue our press conference this morning, hosted by the United National Congress at our head office in Chaguanas, Trinidad. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, this morning I just want to deal with about 2 or 3 issues relating to national security, and one matter that deals with UDCOT that has been in our agenda for some time now, but this morning I'd like to raise that issue of UDCOT, another one of the challenges and crises that UDCOT has been involved in. We have had, over the past few days, another deadly week. In this country today, it is very difficult, as much as we would like to, it's very difficult to find a murderless day. We have had, in a period, over the last period of how many years? Of 9 years, 4,000 murders. And that speaks volumes about the collapse of national security and law enforcement. During one day last week, I believe it was, we have had 17 robberies in one day reported. 17. Our society now is collapsing under the weight of crime, criminality, and insecurity, so that the days become more and more deadly, the issues become more and more serious. It is serious not only for businesses, but for all members of the national community. When this was happening, the Prime Minister was, of course, on his joyride, his luxury spree around the world. I think he crossed 2 continents, India and Africa, and came back home with absolutely nothing to report in terms of any solid achievement of those trips and any positive investment. I want to say at the beginning that the intention to establish a Mumbai Indians Cricket Academy, while laudable by itself, and one cannot underestimate the importance of investment in sport, begs several important questions. What is the future of the Brian Lara Cricket Academy, where we have spent, as the taxpayer has spent, $1.2 billion on a cricket academy, and they are yet to do one short course on cricket. We have not had Cricket 101 yet being taught at the Brian Lara, but now we are talking about giving up 30 acres of land or so to a foreign entity to construct a cricket academy where we have a cricket academy already. Having said that, I want to take note as well that the Prime Minister said that this is an investment in the future, and the persons at India, the Cricket Academy or the Mumbai Club or Reliance Group, they are yet to come to Trinidad to even undertake design work. So design work hasn't started yet. So that is a project which I regret to say we may not see the beginning of that project, far less the end. We have also had a situation where the Prime Minister went over the last few days on return from his globe-trotting events. He had a meeting in Tobago called Conversations with the Prime Minister. Now, it's very interesting that the Prime Minister goes all around the country with conversations with the Prime Minister, which presumably the Prime Minister's office, the taxpayers, pay for. So this is where the taxpayer is paying for another round of talks with the Prime Minister, called Conversations with the PM, last Thursday in Scarborough, Tobago. And he made an interesting comment that it was reported in the newspaper. Rowley hits bail businesses. It was the Newsday, Saturday, 25th May, yesterday. Page 3. Rowley hits bail business. Justice favors criminals. Now, after 9 years in charge of this country, in charge of security, the Prime Minister says that, look, what causing this now is bail. What causing this is bail. criminal elements are getting bail, and lawyers are bright. In fact, he's identifying lawyers as somehow lawyers are responsible for criminals being on the street, accessing bails, and they continue their criminal enterprise. Now, this is an extremely ill-advised, simplistic, and really puerile outlook from a prime minister to what is really a much more serious problem facing us. Yes, there are delays in the criminal justice system. One cannot argue with that. Yes, we need swift justice. But bail is a condition given as a procedure that one gets with conditions, and the purpose of bail is to allow an accused to go to court to be assured. That's the purpose of bail. So that bail by itself is not dealing with criminal conduct in that way. It is during a trial where someone is convicted and so on, you go to jail, and that is how you deal with criminal elements. If they are guilty, they face the prison consequence. If they are not guilty, of course, they are acquitted and they are free. But bail by itself is not a method of dealing with crime. To say that suggests that the Prime Minister himself has this oversimplistic approach to solving crime, which cannot work. And I want to just raise two related matters. The Prime Minister is crying that the criminal justice system is not working, it is slow, people are accessing bail, and lawyers are bright and getting people out of jail and so on. But that is a simplistic approach, as I said. I'll give you just two examples of where the government itself fails when dealing with crime from the perspectives of the government, not the judiciary. In this country, we have invested resources, we have passed laws, regulations, and so on to deal with something called electronic monitoring. The bill that deals with electronic monitoring was passed in 2012 by the government of Kamla Prasad Bisesa. It was passed. And 2012 to today, that's about 12 years later, members of the press, we are saying 12 years later, this cannot be properly implemented. And the government of Rowley is there 9 years, and it cannot be implemented. And today I have in my hand a report on the adequacy and the effectiveness of the electronic monitoring unit out of the Ministry of National Security, managed by Hines. And in a report that they have done for submission to the Parliament, they speak of a crisis of staff. Imagine in 12 years later, they cannot fill basic positions such as a shift monitoring supervisor. And of course, the duties include monitoring, responding to offender alarms, to work with all the stakeholders, the police and so on in this business. They cannot even hire a liaison officer. And that liaison officer is again to work and coordinate and establish and maintain effective working relationships with the police, with the justice agencies, with governments, with relevant government staff. They cannot hire an investigator. They cannot hire an electronic monitoring unit technician. These are vacancies in the electronic monitoring unit establishment. We look again, so that there is a deficit in terms of staff, resources to this unit. And the challenges, of course, at a junior level, there are positions where they have not been able to hire persons. Why? When we asked why is this, they said because the positions are not competitive. People are not attracted to these jobs. Well, then make it attractable. Make it a job that people want to apply for and want to participate and to join. Imagine we have junior positions in the electronic monitoring unit that cannot be staffed, cannot be filled, so that the operations of this unit has more or less collapsed. And I don't want to remind you and spend too much time, but you all will recall, members of the press, that Mr. Hines was boasting that they had a conviction for somebody who was involved in human trafficking, and the person was outfitted with an electronic monitoring unit. And what happened? What happened to this? How exactly was the device removed? And you know what the monitoring unit says? I have their official correspondence in my hand now. They said the device was removed by tampering with it. It was removed by tampering with it. the cutting of the device. So what somebody do? Well, they get a Swiss knife or something and cut the device off. What kind of device is that? That you could ask a poodle dog to bite it off. That is the equipment that they went and sourced. Inferior materials, materials and the quality suspect. All over the world we have electronic monitoring device. You all see it on TV and so on as well. What kind of device did they procure that a puppy dog could bite it off? That you could take a pen knife and cut it off. And this is what they had to say. When asked the timeline of events and the notification and so on, they indicated, and you can see on your screen, I believe, some information. They indicated that the timeline of events began on September 24, 2023, when an alarm trigger was registered, meaning it was being tampered with. So that they claimed that they responded in a good time, but they could not find the offender. He had long escaped. That's the long and short of a report in my hand. So that the point I'm making is that the electronic monitoring system has collapsed. That is where you would have had offenders back on bail, but you would have been monitoring them. Dr. Rowley takes no responsibility for that. The related point is that we had bought equipment called scramblers and jammers and so on, so that you couldn't use electronic communication devices from the prison. Do you know today there are persons incarcerated, either on remand or convicted, and they continue to call the shots, to put hits on people, to ask for money by extortion. We have had a serious case recently where members of the Prison Officers Association have been threatened, but threatened by persons who are inside. So where are the scrambler, where is the jammers, where are the equipment that was purchased to be used? 9 years later, they cannot get an effective system to prevent communication between prisoners inside and their conspirators outside. And Rowley claims that, look, this is a criminal playground here and he can't believe it's so bad. While you had responsibility, direct responsibility, and failed miserably. That was two matters relating to crime. Today, I call on the government to reintroduce, as Sister Khadija Amin says, our program that was dealing with crime in the school. It was called Classroom Crime Prevention Program, done by the People's Partnership, involving the community comfort patrols around the schools, involving the community police of the TTPS, using equipment in some cases, metal detectors and so on, handheld devices at schools that were high risk. Today all schools are high risk. When you see the videos that Sister Amin was talking about, when you look at those videos, you can't believe it's Trinidad and Tobago. You just can't. The children are in a tussle. It's a rumble. Every single day you get videos like this. Because security has collapsed in and around the schools, and it has also collapsed in the locations. And today I joined Sister Amin in calling on the government to return our program of community comfort patrols and related programs dealing with school violence and violence around the classroom. This government dismantled several People's Partnership programs, and that led to crime in this country. The National Center, we had a National Operational Center that integrated all the arms of the national security. It was done under Minister Gary Griffith, that integrated all law enforcement agencies into one. That was dismantled. The school program, anti-violence program, dismantled. Today we hear of extortion. We have called before, and I call again for the development of a specialized multi-divisional unit in the TTPS to deal with extortion by gang members. That is a separate new offense now, where gang members are asking businessmen in central Trinidad, in St. Augustine, Tanapuna, along the corridor, for as much as $30,000 per month for quote-unquote protection. When they fail to do that, when they refuse to do this, then their families are exposed to kidnapping. They are exposed to murder, to being shot. And this is a crisis we face now, and we call upon the TTPS to establish a specialized unit to deal with extortion by gang members. We must go to the parliament And we have said before on this platform, we will look at this to ensure that we create new offenses with heavy jail sentences and so on to deal with extortion, to deal with home invasion. Look at what has happened. A prominent attorney at law, senior counsel, I believe a former senator, was the victim of a home invasion where he was brutally beaten in this country. Look at what is happening. So home invasion is a matter that we must treat with. We must deal with home invasion from a legislative standpoint as well, to ensure that those offenses carry heavy jail terms and so on. We have said before that we believe that we should ensure that members of the business community and citizens of Trinidad and Tobago generally who are qualified must obtain firearms and have weapons, legal weapons, to protect themselves. Mrs. Prasad Bisesa has spoken about that stand your ground policy. And associated with stand your ground policy is the fact that we believe that persons who are qualified by law should be able to access weapons to defend themselves, to defend their families, because the state has failed. And that is a matter, of course, that we have a policy position on, and we will articulate further in the coming days. We have spoken of cybercrime, of course. Today I want to inform you from the national security perspective that the Coast Guard is today crippled. We are talking about preventing the illegal importation of firearms and weapons. Do you know Dr. Rowley went with Stuart Young and I think the CDS, I'm coming to the CDS just now as well, the CDS to Australia to purchase 2 vessels quite recently over the last 2 or 3 years. Do you know those vessels are now parked on the northwestern peninsula, and the contract for maintenance and operation has expired almost 2 months now, and those vessels are now non-operational. Brand new vessels, they cannot go out to patrol now because a particular contract with the builder, provider out of Australia has expired and it has not been renewed. Apart from that, the Daman vessels that were purchased under the People's Partnership, they still cannot get a contract in place to repair those vessels, so they park up. So eventually, the Coast Guard will be using a canoe. Somewhere down Shagaramas down there, they will have a canoe, a kayak or whatever they call it when they go to kayaking, they call it. Yeah, the Coast Guard will depend on kayaking to patrol the waters of Trinidad and Tobago to look for illegal weapons. That is the future of the Coast Guard under Keith Rowley and the PNM. Members of the press, on a related matter, look at what has happened. We had a report which was confirmed by the TTPS where cameras were found installed, and the cameras were there not legally. They were cameras installed by what the TTPS believed to be gang members. Today we call upon the police to give information, update the population on their investigation. Update the community on the investigation. What is the situation? Has anyone been arrested? Today I can indicate to you that we have information. We have information coming to us on this matter. Brothers and sisters, members of the press, you will be shocked to know that we have been reliably informed that the vehicles used to erect those illegal cameras in and around police stations and law enforcement agencies were actually vehicles belonging or looking as if they belong to one of the service providers. Now, CCTV camera has a history in this country. You all will recall that 9 years ago when we left office, by the 10th year, by the first or second year of the PNM government, we had left in office the Kamla Prasad Bisesa government. We had increased CCTV cameras in Trinidad by 700. We increased in Tobago, not increased, we put the first set of cameras, 80 cameras. We had a contract in place with a local provider in joint partnership with a foreign firm, and we were monitoring 1,800 cameras by 2015. And a system was in place with a central command unit, but also regional units, command units, where police at the regions can monitor what is happening in their locality from CCTV cameras. When the PNM got in power, Stuart Young went and said that was expensive, too much money for cameras. He made it into a joke to say one camera was $30,000 and so on. The camera wasn't $30,000, it was the service. It was the technology, it was the backbone, it was the monitoring. It was 8 sub-regional command centers. Do you know they dismantled all of that? They went out to tender sometime in September 2017. They went to tender, companies, both local and foreign, put in their bids. 10, 20 minutes before the bids were going to close the time, they got an instruction from the Ministry of National Security to cancel the process. Could you believe that? I raised that in Parliament. It was cancelled because their favorite bidder did not put in a bid and could not put in a bid on time. That continued until January the next year, I believe 2018. And in January, when we pressed in Parliament, and you know, I hear people saying we have a weak opposition and so on. The CCTV cameras were exposed by the UNC. The Auditor General report was exposed by the UNC. Today, members of the press tell us, look, boy, we have nothing to report, nothing new. The UNC did it already. That is true. We are very sorry, members of the press, if we did that. But the UNC came with the information from the Auditor General. Which opposition? Was the opposition from Jamaica said that? The opposition from Dominica? Is the opposition in Trinidad and Tobago? The OAS report, we came with that. The collapse of the central bank project with Shanghai International, we told you about that. The mosquito crack, we told you about that. We could continue and continue and continue. But that's not my purpose right now. But to tell you that this has been the strongest opposition in the history of Trinidad and Tobago and the most lively and active opposition party in the Caribbean today. Anybody know if any opposition in any CARICOM region having a press conference this morning? Anybody know? Are we clashing with the opposition in somewhere? In St. Vincent or Barbura or something? Are we clashing this morning with any other opposition party? No! We are the only opposition party that maintain the intensity, the heat on a government. So to hear people say you are the weakest and so on. The Auditor General report, we exposed it. Imbert had to put his proverbial tail between his leg on Friday and stand up sheepishly. He stood there sheepishly with shame. In fact, on Friday, you could not get any eggs sold in Port of Spain. They were all on his face. He had a shortage of eggs in the supermarket. They were on his face. He had to sheepishly stand up, bow his head, he was speaking sometime in his tie, and lay the Auditor General report for the fiscal year 2023, as we told him. They will do a special report, as Kamla Prasad-Bisesa advised them the first day. There was no need for all of that, bacchanal and so on. She told them what to do. Of course, they said no, and then they had to bow and take the same instruction and advice from the Honorable Kamla Prasad-Bisesa. That is where we are with the Auditor General report. So I was telling you about the CCTV camera. Today, I want to call on 2 companies. A company called Johnson Controls out of Canada. They must have a local agent here, who got the contract to supply those cameras. I call upon Digicel, that is a local, a foreign company operating here locally in the market and so on, telecom market. I asked Digicel and I asked Johnson Controls, could you make a statement and confirm that none of your equipment, your trucks, your vans, your personnel have been identified as involved in the installation of those illegal cameras found in the vicinity of police stations recently? I leave it at that because we knew in the opposition that once you tampered with that contract we put in place in 2015, once you tampered with that, brought in external suppliers, brought in your friend and family to give them millions, this was the outcome. That the criminal underworld would infiltrate even the providers and suppliers. How can people using a van with a known provider for a CCTV camera go up and erect illegal cameras? And I want to ask TNTech and Minister Marvin Gonzalez as well, where is the report from TNTech that you promised on this, the investigation? We asked you to make that report public on the CCTV cameras and that matter. Ladies and gentlemen, on the SSA matter, I would only say a few things now. There was a story in the newspaper as well, I took note of it, that Chief of Defense Staff saved ex-SSA spy chief from criminal charge. Now, last week, Monday, I spoke on a UNC platform in Pinal, and I alluded to the fact that the police would investigate this, and they would call the CDS, Daryl Daniel, Vice Air Marshal. They called him, and they spoke to him. And if the newspaper story is correct, we knew that the police was going to contact the CDS. The CDS confirmed that what he did was legal and proper by transferring weapons from the Defense Force to the SSA. So today they cannot charge the SSA director, former SSA director Roger Best, Major Best. They cannot charge him. So today I ask, why did the government fire Major Roger Best as director of the SSA if you cannot find anything wrong that he has done? Why was he fired? Was he fired because he refused to take instructions that were illegal, improper, unethical, to spy on political opponents, to hand over spying equipment to a particular low-ranking constable in the special branch who answers to Fitzgerald Hines? Was he fired because of that? Because there's no reason. He was cleared of all matters and so on. Did you fire him because of that? And that leads me to this point, whether or not a unit in special branch, not special branch, a particular unit has gone rogue in conducting surveillance and interception outside of the law and reporting to Hines and Rowley. And I call on those officers to respect the law, understand and respect the law, because Rowley and Hines' days are numbered. And you may not be able to get away with that when the UNC reach on the compound, which will be very soon. So, members of the press, this witch hunt against the SSA and innocent police officers, I want to tell you, when we go to sleep in the night, there are police officers who are awakened, who are on task force, who go out as part of their duty on raids and police operations and so on. They put their life on the line every single night to target them now and arrest them, suspend them, bring their career and their profession into disrepute. I believe that by itself speaks volumes of a dictatorship of the PNM. I wanted now to just leave you with one other matter before we take questions from the members of the press and others. I wanted to raise a matter of UDCOT. Now, UDCOT, as you know, has been involved since the partnership was there in developing prime property on the northwest end of Trinidad and Tobago in the vicinity of Movitown, Port of Spain. A piece of land that is estimated to worth and has a value, market value, of over $1 billion Trinidad and Tobago dollars. 75 acres of prime property called Invaders Bay, located to the northwest of Movitown, so to speak. And we have some pictures and we have a video, and we will play it now. I think you are seeing it now. What has happened is that this government, through UDCOT, has given a contract for the tune of, I believe, $75 million for land development at UDCOT. And what you are seeing now is the land development. That is a video and pictures of land development at Invaders Bay. $75 million. While they put out in the newspaper, years ago in 2018, we have that too, 2018, they invited bids for the development of Invaders Bay. To this day, they have not told us who is going to get that land, what they are going to get it for, what is the overall development framework for Invaders Bay. When we were there, we were clear. And I want to remind people, when we were in office every Monday morning, Afra Raymond and Contractors Association and Contractor this and what they call the next one who we don't hear about? Transparency Institute, I think. They died, they had Shavin and Bandara already. Fixin' TNT. Where's Fixin' TNT? Where's Transparency International? Where's our good brother Afra Raymond? Where is Mikey something from the Contractors Association? Did all these people migrate and didn't tell us? Are they now living in Canada or Miami and we don't know? But we hear nothing from them. Every Monday morning we in office is a different Sunday story each Monday about what a partnership doing at Invaders Bay. What was the process? Who get it? Procurement, transparency, openness. They went to court to get a legal opinion on what we were doing there. To this day, I ask these gentlemen and I ask the members of the press, do you know what process has been used? What is the procurement process? Who benefited? Is there to be a Marriott long-term hotel there? Developed by who? What process did they use to give that person a contract and to give them access to that prime land to put a Marriott hotel? What else is going there? A finance building? Who is involved? The investment project, the investor, the company, the name, what process? When is it going to start? When it is going to finish? How much money is involved? When we were there, we had explored with the Chinese, I believe, a financial tower there to house banks and investment companies, insurance companies. We were speaking to a well-known developer from Movietong to have what is called Streets of the World, to have almost like a mini New Orleans there as entertainment, hospitality, linked to a financial hub. That was supposed to be our Wall Street of Trinidad and Tobago under the People's Partnership. Today, clearing the road, fixing the road and so on, but you don't know, the people don't know who is going there, what is going there, what was the process used. Today, I call for transparency as far as the Invaders Bay project is concerned. It cannot be that they are free to do anything they want, to give it to their friends. One man, I believe he was some COVID examiner who had a job to do a account and an overview and a report on COVID and so on. And suddenly you hear names that they are involved now, getting prime Invaders Bay property worth $1 billion to run their business. I am not casting aspersions on anyone. All I am saying is that please tell us what process were used, how many bidders came in, what were the competing projects like, who was selected and why. That's all. That's all. But don't do it sneakily, as we are hearing. And I think on that note, I have covered most of the matters that I would like to deal with today. And to repeat, of course, what Sister Khadija Amin has told us, that today we live in very difficult times. The young people of this country are hopeless, jobless, and powerless. The young people do not see a future in this country under the PNM because they have no work. Today I took note of an article in the newspaper by Professor Selwyn Kojo. I thought it was a very good article because it spoke of the importance of employment to empowerment. That young people will only feel empowered with employment. And we need to create an economy that will have the jobs for our young people. And not just CPEP and URP. Those are temporary stopgap measures to help with absolute poverty. But we need to have a future for our young people with trade schools, vocational centers, proper jobs, technical jobs as well. So we need to attract investment that will create the jobs, and then the state need to invest in the educational and training institutions to create those skills that will be needed in the market. Because as Sister Amin quite rightly say, what you getting all the education and training for if the economy is not creating the jobs for it? So they need to work in tandem. And that is an approach, of course, that the UNC has favored in office on 2 occasions when we have rescued this country. I know in the press today there's another article, I believe it's the Sunday Express, MP paid $0.75 million by government ministries. This is a matter I raised before with the Auditor General. Report is in the Express today. Another issue that the media says that we raised before them. But I wanted to return to this to indicate that something appears funny with this. There's something funny about this. Normally, when I have been in charge of property management in this country for, I believe, 4 years. Normally, persons will have a company and they will put these properties under a company and rent to the state. So the state deals with a company. This is possibly the only occasion I know of when the state is renting from a human being like this. They are renting from a member of parliament, and the rent is in his name, not a company. Anyone, I don't know if I am over curious about these things because I was in charge of property management for so long, but there's something very curious about this that requires further investigation. Those 7 properties of Mr., and I could call his name now, I didn't last time, Roger Monroe, sorry, that was the James Bond man before, I think. Roger Monroe. There's something curious about this. Normally, like Alwari, like Randall Mitchell, they are all landlords, I believe, in their own way. They will have companies and the state rent from company. Why is it that a human being, one man, renting 7 properties, we believe, to the government in his name? So the rent goes to his name. You know what happens here is that there is no company that you can find, you can audit, you can investigate. You have to investigate the man. And all I will say at this time is that there are certain consequences and circumstances to that. To giving a man money as opposed to a company. When it is a company, it lends itself for greater transparency. Also, a company has certain requirements in law. Through the banking system, through the Financial Intelligence Bureau. You all realize these dots I'm trying to connect, huh? I'm connecting some dots here that a company has legal requirements in the banking sector and in the state oversight sector, primarily the Financial Intelligence Unit. Companies have that. Individuals may not have that in that way. So if you have to investigate the man. Whereas there is an automatic process in place now in our banking system and in our oversight system in the Ministry of the Attorney General, I believe, there's an oversight now for companies. So you can quickly investigate companies. With human being, you have to create a police investigation before you could investigate people and their personal business like that. And these are some dots I am trying to connect, and in due course we will speak further on this matter of that rental and recusal, because this person, how convenient that the person is not a member of the cabinet. The 2 members of the cabinet renting, they have companies, but the one who is not in cabinet, just give him the money in his name. I leave it as I found it. And Mr. Roger Monroe may have to, as some of us here over the years, they may have to explain their wealth and when properties were purchased and from who, and whether or not rental money is being relayed elsewhere. That is what that speaks to, and is something that I ask these questions now, but I cast no aspersions, of course, on the character of the MP in question. I cast aspersions on a process that we have found. So with those words, we'll leave it there and invite some questions by members of the media and others, if possible. Thank you very much.
All right, good morning. Doris Polo from Guardian Media. You spoke about the school security program being reintroduced. Yesterday, the Commissioner of Police spoke about crime in general, and she mentioned that there were unrealistic expectations for the police service to reduce crime and suggested that there needed to be better parenting. What are your thoughts on that comment?
Well, I heard the comments. In fact, I heard it, the voice. I don't know. I mean, the comment now on this Commissioner of Police is so hard. The Commissioner says she is befuddled, or the nation is befuddled, I think that was the term, by crime and the horrific nature of crime. Then makes a remarkable statement. The Commissioner says that there are unrealistic expectations that the police will detect, the police will bring to justice, the police will deal with crime. I want to put it to the Commissioner of Police that the expectation by the citizens that police will detect and solve crime and prevent crime is not unrealistic. That is what their job is there. The police job is not to build houses. The police job is not to organize tourist events. The police job is not to manage, the health sector. The police job is to detect, to prevent crime, solve crime. That is the job. I don't believe that we are in the same world here, because I don't believe the Commissioner of Police could be telling the country that the country is unrealistic to believe police should solve crime. Well, who will solve crime? Who will solve crime? The Boy Scout? The Girls Guide? They will solve crime? So I took a note of that statement and I just crossed it off.
We have a story you mentioned too today that you felt the conversations from the government as it relates to bail denial for certain offences was a simplistic way to approach crime. We do have a story that we published, I think, this past week, that a man was serving a sentence for murdering his common law wife, and then would have gone and murdered another woman and was awaiting sentencing for that. Do you think, though, that denial of bail would help the situation?
But first to begin, let me repeat that the denial of bail is not a crime plan. The denial of bail has to do with whether or not a court believes that someone is a threat to witnesses, someone is likely to abscond and not appear in court. It has to do with that. Crime is committed in this country by persons who are on bail, and we're very clear on that. Intelligence reports and police reports have suggested to us strongly that crime is committed by persons who are refused bail or on bail. Anyone, it doesn't matter. You could be in prison, as I said before, and you call the shots, you commit crime from behind the prison wall. That is known to us now. The judiciary has the responsibility to deny bail or not. It is a judicial function. It is not the function of politicians. The law, as you know, has been changed recently in line with certain judgments and so on, that persons are allowed bail, but it is not automatic. It's the judiciary that decides that, and the conditions as well. I have seen some situations where serious offenses, alleged offenses, low bail, what I call trivial offenses, high bail, and so on. We have seen that. So clearly there's much more to be done with that from a perspective of law, but also policy. So that, yes, there might be a case, I don't know, but if you say so, I don't doubt you, where someone is out on bail and commit an next offense. But preventing that is not the issue of bail per se, because that person will commit a crime while he's denied bail. It is policing, and I want to come to this too. This society today is unpatrolled, unpoliced. With great respect to the police officers, and I know many, and they work very hard. They're starved of resources, of cars, of people, of equipment. I want to tell you that I'm in touch with a lot of police officers as Shadow Minister of National Security. And the policemen themselves and policewomen want to do more. But they tell you they don't have resources. Now, they cannot speak openly. They are like doctors in the hospital. They can't make critical statements against the hospital administration. The police is like that. They can't make critical statements against the government, against their Ministry of National Security, worse, against their commissioner. They are prohibited from making adverse or critical comments, the police. But when we speak to them individually and so on, they tell you they wish they can do more. More can be done. They don't have resources. They don't have systems in place to simply repair cars. They have hundreds of police cars today down that they cannot repair in a timely manner to ensure that the village police station, as the case may be, have resources. When you are out on the road, how often, I ask you, do you see a patrol car? How often in the night do you see flashing lights passing on your street, in your village, in your town? When we were in office, I recall we had police cars up and down the highway, up and down through villages, in areas where we did not have the TTPS, where the Community Comfort Patrol. Do you know people get robbed sometime when we were in office, robbery in an area, and they call the Community Comfort Patrol, not the police? Because those people are close to them. They got to know people one by one, and people would know who is the elderly lady living in her house by herself. We know that she's going to the pharmacy. Let's find out if she got through with her prescription and so on. These were stories we heard. So that today the police starved of resources, starved of what I really believe to be effective management. And that is the problem. So and then you hear stories where people have reported to the police that I am being threatened. I'm certain this man, invariably, I'm certain this man will hurt me. He has threatened me three times before. What is done? What is done? That is a matter for the police, and the commissioner tells us that we have unreasonable expectations of the police. So what is the role of the police? Are they to put on clothes and march up and down the place in sports day? Is their role tug of war in the sports day? Playing musical instruments? That is the role? No, we have to be, I think our expectations of the police must be met by strong management of the police and the Ministry of National Security. I say again that every law enforcement agency has collapsed under Fitzgerald Hines. Rowley said his biggest mistake was Gary Griffith. So that means Hines was his best appointment.
All right, so shifting gears now, we know UNC internals are coming up. Have you filed your nomination papers?
What took you so long to reach that issue? I find it took so long. What I can confirm is that I am working with colleagues in the party. In this matter of the internal election. And tomorrow night, it's a great night. Tomorrow night, I only say this because you asked me. I was not going to advertise this way, but I say tomorrow night at the Couva South Multipurpose Hall, we will have a launch of the Star Slate at 7 p.m. We expect to have a bumper event. All candidates are expected to be named for that internal election on June 15th, but the Star Slate will launch tomorrow, and I can confirm now that the stars are in alignment and will be revealed to the voters and the national community. A very powerful, dynamic team, ably supported, led, inspired by the political leader, the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisesa.
I think you might have evaded her question. Did you file a nomination?
No, I did not evade her question. I was answering her question in my way. So I'm not evading. What I'm saying is that to get the piece of information you want, I'm inviting you to Couva South tomorrow. And you will be happy with the answer.
If I'm permitted, if it is you, one member of parliament in government, and you own 7 properties in which rent will be paid directly to you, the current government would have been in opposition. How do you think they would have prosecuted this matter against?
Oh, they would have called the police. A long time. I would have been the subject of police investigation, integrity commission investigation. Now, there's also in the newspaper today, I'm so happy to see that you raised that matter. I'm very happy. In that article, which I didn't read in detail from, there's an interesting point. In the 2023 report of the Auditor General, which they wanted to hide, this matter of Roger Monroe came to the fore in the 2023 report. But they are saying in the Express today that that was not raised in 2022 report or in 2021 report of the Auditor General's report. So is it that these 7 properties only began to be rented in 2023 fiscal? Is that it? He said that they were being rented long time ago. Mr. Monroe said, so let's work out this in a forensic way. Mr. Monroe said, this is nothing wrong. I've been renting to the state years now. The Auditor General said when she asked for her reports on MPs who are getting rent, the Ministry of Finance said nil. The Ministry of Agriculture said nil, and only National Security said yes. When she investigated, and I say when the Auditor General Office investigated, they found that the Ministry of Finance lied. The Ministry of Agriculture lied. That the man was actually receiving rent from Agriculture and Finance. So imagine the Ministry of Finance lie to the Auditor General of the country.
Could there be repercussions there?
But let me just finish the answer. So Mr. Monroe is saying, no, nothing wrong with this. I've been doing this years now, you know. But it is not in the Auditor General reports of 2021 and 2022. So what has happened here? Is it that the government of the PNM is now a serial liar? Where every single year they lie to the Auditor General and they just get caught.
Now, beyond the lies, in terms of the accounting officer now, who would have said nil in the Ministry of Finance and the other ministry, I mean, what are the repercussions for them in terms of criminal?
Given what was exposed today in this article in the Sunday Express, given what was exposed today, I believe that this matter requires a police investigation as to why the Auditor General reports of 21, 22 had no reference to an MP, a Member of Parliament, receiving rents. Why? When that is a requirement, there's a law, they actually quote the chapter of the Act that requires you as a Member of Parliament to indicate to the Auditor General. And Mr. Monroe said it is not his job to send the Auditor General nothing. That is the ministry's. So I called today on the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Finance, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture, Minister of Agriculture, and Minister of Finance to speak up as to why the information was not given before and why they effectively lied to the Auditor General of Trinidad and Tobago on this matter.
All right, so Dr. Moonilal, I want to go back to internals.
You know, Mrs. Amin also smoker?
Yeah, right. You're on your legs, so.
Okay, good.
You mentioned and I have the flyer, the Couva South Multipurpose Hall will be hosting the United Star Slate, right?
Yes.
And Mrs. Prasad Bisasa will be there. Based on your constitution, is it normal? Because it almost appears to be an endorsement by the political leader for this national executive elections if she's going to be present, while she simultaneously rejected the invitation by Rushton Parry to partake in his party's or his slate's launch.
Well, let me put it this way. Mrs. Prasad Bisasa, like any member of the party, and Mrs. Prasad Bisasa is a member of the party, is free to support or not support any slate of candidates of their choice. That's
and
their right.
In the Constitution.
No, but but in Trinidad and Tobago, you are free to support any political party of your choice. So if you are a member of the PNM, nobody can ask you why you're not supporting the UNC, and vice versa. It's the same principle. If you would like to support a slate or any candidate in an internal election, you are a member, that is your right. That is your right. You can't deny someone their right to support a slate or a candidate of their choice or a group of candidates. So Mrs. Prasad Bisasa is a member of the party and entitled to support whoever she may choose to support.
Do you think that would influence how people will vote?
We will see on election day.
All right.
Somehow I feel you're not finished with internal elections
No,
yet.
I want to
so.
ask your thoughts on the response that Mrs. Prasad Bisasa gave to Mr. Parry, because I came to a conference here and there was some concerns about him taking his issues with the UNC public. But then her response was made public and he flagged that when he responded to her response. So what do you think about that exchange?
Well, I think you are referring to a newspaper article today. Is it? There's a particular headline. What is the headline? I'm just finding it so I don't misquote, because I don't want to misquote anybody here now. The front page of the Express is Kamala rejects Parry, and the story, I believe, has, Kamala, he's a mischief maker. That is the headline. Is that the article you're referring to? He's a mischief maker. Well, what's the question again?
Your thoughts on the response that was made
by Mrs. Prasad Bisasa. I did read the story, of course. Mrs. Prasad Bisasa has responded to Mr. Parry. She has given, I think, a detailed response. 7 pages, and identified at all material times the inconsistencies of Mr. Parry's statement, and I think she has also questioned his sincerity of purpose in inviting and in participating, and also his rather short tenure. As you will recall, Mr. Parry was a member of the PNM. That is not in dispute. And she has questioned his short tenure and his contribution to the party. And she has dubbed him a mischief maker. Now, of course, these are the views of the political leader. It is shared by some of us because we have spoken on this matter. And I can confirm to you that we have been on the platform in private meetings, speaking and so on with members. And members of our party are very concerned with this mischief maker and this kind of business. However, as I told you before, Mr. Parry himself, as outlined in that letter, I did read the letter, has a lot of questions to answer in terms of his own contribution to the party, his own achievements, his own tenure. And I want to remind you and others that on April 26th it was, when we had a critical vote to take in the Parliament on the extension of time for the Auditor General's report. Critical vote. The PNM had 19 members present. The UNC has 19 members in Parliament, of which I believe the 5 were absent. And that was shocking, because had we voted that day 1919, the Speaker is obliged, according to parliamentary practice, May's parliamentary practice, to vote as a casting vote to keep the status quo, which is not to change for the extension. And the government would have been defeated on that day if those persons, including the mischief maker was present in the parliament, if they were present in the parliament. And that was shocking to many of us. It meant that the PNM was on the rope. We had them on the rope, and you allowed the boxer to escape. You allowed Rowley to escape when he was already on the rope, ready to go down. So this will not happen again, I assure you. And as I say, I look forward to an exhilarating and exciting internal election. It is an explosion of democracy. Persons are within their rights to compete, whether they be mischief makers or not. And we will see on June 15th. I have great faith and confidence in the members of the United National